approach the organization, Wilmington Housing Partnership, and I expect to see the money in the bank, and it's not there. So my question and concern was, where is it?
Money? Yeah,
where is it? It doesn't disappear.
Good evening. This is Dr. Curry.
Shané Darby.
And welcome to The Source. Today, Shané, we don't have our friend and colleague, Brother Kobe. He's in Brooklyn, New York, doing some policy stuff with the Democratic Party. But I want to start this show off today by just sharing, since the last time we came together this week, there were 6 different reported shootings in our city. And I want to say reported because I'm learning all of them are not always reported. But I don't know what is going on, and I'm going to share with you in a few seconds all 6 of them. But is there anything happening in City Council to talk about the uptick in violence in our city?
No, we haven't really talked about the uptick as collectively as a group, but I know that group from New Jersey came. We have our on-the-ground teams who are out. We know we're going to bring Wolfie on hopefully sometime soon with the violence prevention he's doing in the community. We have Network Connect, another organization who's out in the community. We have some over East Side, North Side, South. They split them up into teams. So they're supposed to be doing a lot of violence prevention and intervention work in the community. Right. So I know that's what City Council has funded through ARPA funds, which is temporary funds, and they have to be spent by a certain time. But there has been no real commitment from the government, City Council, or the administrative side outside of that money to continue in this work. So that's a conversation we have to have. I wanted to have it in the last budget hearing, but I didn't have enough consensus amongst the group to have that conversation. So hopefully next year we can have that conversation. So.
Wow, but it seems like a lot of the shooting is happening in a certain area. Now, on last, I believe it was Friday, because we record on Thursdays.
Right.
A teen, 17-year-old, was shot at 8:20 in the evening, and it's at the 2700 block of West Street. What district is that in?
That's the 2nd district. That's my district.
That's your district. So is there a lot of things going on over there?
Yeah.
So are you not a good city council? Why? Oh, what? I don't know what to ask you.
Right.
Here's another one. I'm gonna stay there for a minute, but what about that one on West 26th Street? Is that your district too?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the street, but 26th Street is in my district.
Oh wow. And that happened where there was a 22-year-old female shot.
Yeah.
And she was transported to the hospital, but to our understanding, she's in stable condition.
Yeah.
And then you had 2 shootings. And one was on the 700 block of North Washington Street. Tell me that's your district.
No, it's in Quaker Hill. So Quaker Hill, I think, I don't know whose district that is.
Okay. And what about the second one that happened around 11 a.m. where fire shots rang out, and that was on 7th and Adams?
Yeah, that's over West Side. I'm not sure whose district.
Oh, that's not your district neither. Okay, so we got one more. Let's see. And then you have the 22-year-old female who was shot on the 26th Street. On North, well, I guess West 26th Street.
We talked about those 2, the top 2. You talking about the Stroden Street?
Yeah, Stroden Street. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that one's over West Side somewhere too, I think.
Wow. So you're saying other than proposals being brought forward, no real action have been taken on helping to downtick the violence that's happening in our city.
Yeah, correct. And I'm not shocked it's happening.
Yeah,
it's clearly where you invest in, right? So historically, where has the investment been in regards to economic development? We talk about housing development. There's no development or investment happening by government in these areas. So when there's no investment happening in the people in the infrastructure there, then you're going to have violence. Like that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
I hope that you today, and for those of you who are watching us today, we have a special report that our good friend Sister Shané is going to do with the mayor candidate Velda Potter. And I hope that that's one of the things that you get a chance to ask her about the reinvestment and because I know she did some phenomenal work with the city treasurer as well as the state treasurer. And I'm looking forward to that interview that you're going to have with her so that we can hear some of the things that she's interested in. And I do ask that you stay tuned for the whole time that we're on today, because that's going to be a special report that I'm looking forward to hearing from. So we had 6 shootings in the city. You're of the opinion that maybe there's just an apathy with administration and city council as it relates to these persons?
Yeah, this is a clear lack of investment. This is what we're going to get, and this is what we're going to continue to get if there's no investment, right? So as a city council person alone, I get $10,000 a year. There's no type of investment I can do with $10,000 for my district, right? So a lot of times I do things with block parties. All right, you need 300 here. It's $10,000 we get per council person. That's not the real investment. It happens during budget hearing when we go over the general funds, all of the funds, right? Like, where does that money go? Or this bond, when we go to the bond bill, like those things, where does the money go in our community? And when you see a clear lack of, or you see a very little investment happening, then you're going to have crime. Like that is it. You have young kids where educational system is failing them. You have parents at home who have a lot of challenges, right? Either they're working too much or dealing with addiction, like so many other things. If I have to work 2 jobs, it's hard for me to be home with my 16-year-old son, right? Yeah. And I'm trying to make ends meet. It's hard for that to happen, so the streets might suck them up, right?
And you made a very powerful point, because some people say, well, where's the mother? Where's the parent? Sometimes people don't understand, those of you who live in these perfect conditions, that parents have to get out and work. They have to do what they have to do, especially as you're trying to connect all the dots. If we had, better investment in our city, better investment in jobs, then we'll find that some of this violence would just go away.
Yeah, like if that mom was able to work 1 job to make ends meet, then she'll have more time to be home, right? Yeah. But now I have to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet because I live in the middle of the hood and you're charging me $2,000 for a 3-bedroom house. Ridiculous, right? Yeah. And then I got to pay all my other bills. It's like this clear inequity that you see happening in a lot of communities, right? So that's the problem. When you don't fix those other issues, you're going to get this.
Yeah, and that's sad. And you've often heard me talk about when we are together that babies and seniors are my specialty. I don't want anybody bothering either the two. The last shooting that we had that happened in broad daylight,
right?
It was a 72-year-old male who got shot. Now, where's Kirkwood, the 900 block of Kirkwood? Where is that located at?
It's over West Side.
The West Side, that's not your district either? Okay, I was going to criticize you, but I see that it's spread.
I'm used to the criticism.
It's spread abroad, but it's not even a joking matter, so let me not take it as a joke. But he was shot in broad daylight. And I just say, when will we get the investment? I think that's going to be the main thing. When will we get the investment? And if we cannot get the investment, we're going to continue to see this perpetration happening.
And I also think it's a government thing, definitely, but I also think it's a community thing. Like, when as a community are we going to talk about these things and come up with our own solutions and things that we want to do to advocate to impact policy, right? If there's only 2 people at the city council meeting in regards to something to do with gun violence, there's only 2 people there, the community didn't come out. Like, what impact is that going to really have?
But you gotta think about some of these communities. I'm not saying all. I don't want anybody to say that he said all the communities. But if you got people who are in a desperate situation, they place them all together so that nobody can.
But there are some who can.
Right, and but the few who can, most of the time they do. Is only a few.
Right.
And that's what
I think it's more than those few.
Okay.
I think some people are just wrapped up in life and just don't take the commitment to do it. Because you can join virtually while you're cooking for your kids. Right? Yeah. And there are people who have made sacrifices. I'm not in the best condition, like at all. Like at all, okay? But I made a conscious decision to be able to be involved, right?
Okay.
And I think those conscious decisions can happen. And sometimes it might not be every city council meeting, but it might be one a month where I join virtually, right? We have to learn that there are certain commitments you have to make, and it's not as hard as we think it is in our head, right? But there are some extreme situations, like you're homeless, you're out on the street. Of course you can't come to a city council meeting, right?
Okay.
But if there's the people who are doing okay, like they're completely cut off and not thinking about government or policies.
Yeah, but if they shooting all over my house, I would have to be thinking about it.
Some people aren't.
I know. I hear you. I hear you.
Or some people wait for something extreme for their child to become injured, and then they're an advocate, right?
Yeah, just like I think if something extreme happened down at the riverfront, we'll get better policing.
Yeah.
I think that's how it works. But it's one more thing before we go to our break. I wanted to share that there was one quick arrest in Tuesday's shooting. So we want to say so we can be fair that the police department did make one arrest for the Tuesday shooting. One of the Tuesday shootings, it was two of them. The last thing before we go to our break is, so they did pass it for us to get $25 for those who violate parking. To my understanding,
no, it didn't pass yet. They just said that this is what they're going to do. So that legislation hasn't hit the floor yet.
Oh, it's going to hit the floor, and it's going to.
It's going
but you got to pay by a certain amount of time.
You got to pay by.
So if my check is not until a day after, I'm still stuck with a $40 check.
$40. Okay.
Well, there is some movement, but it still does not negate the fact of what was promised.
Right. Yeah,
because it was promised that it would be reduced.
This is an unethical government. City council people and the mayor administration. Unethical.
I saw you. I heard you on your I call it your podcast, but it's really you go live a lot. And you're really concerned. So when we go to the Shané Court, I'm sure you're going to share several things that you're very concerned about.
Yeah.
All right. So we look forward to that. We'll be right back.
The Delaware Mortgage Relief Program can help homeowners in need. Created by the Delaware State Housing Authority, this grant program provides each eligible household with up to $50,000 in mortgage relief assistance. This money can be used for future or delinquent mortgage payments, property taxes, homeowners association fees, or insurance fees. Funding is limited. Apply today. Visit online or call 888-303-4324 for more information about the Delaware Mortgage Relief Program.
And we're back. Again, for those of you who are watching this, please stay tuned. We have a special report. Miss Shané Darby is going to interview Velda Potter, who is a candidate for mayor for the city of Wilmington. We promised you all that we were going to do that. We don't have any other candidates, so we cannot say that I'm endorsing someone or she's endorsing. Well, I think you probably
I'm endorsing her.
You are endorsing
Period.
her. Well, I need to see all the candidates before I endorse, but I am certainly leaning in that way to have her and those who I have any influence over, if nobody don't come better. Let's put it that way. But I want you to stay tuned for that. What's going on with Shané's Scoop today?
Yeah. So I know it's been hot topic for the past week about residency requirements. Just to give everyone a little background or history on the residency requirement. Since I've been on city council, Mayor Mike Frizicki has been talking about getting rid of residency, right? He does not want residency requirements. So currently, what is supposed to happen right now is that Wilmington residents are prioritized for being city employees and being hired, right? Once you sign your contract, let's say you live in Newark, you have 6 months to move here, and you have to live here for at least 5 years to be able to remain a city employee with the city of Wilmington, right? So I think it's important to have residency in regards to being able to build a strong middle class here, right? We don't want just people who are very wealthy, poor people with middle class here to really balance out our economics. We talk about economic development in our community, being able to have people who are using the grocery stores here, the businesses here. We need that to happen. We need a strong middle class to be able to do that. And then just being invested in your community is so important. You have to know what your community is like, right? And there's a lot of times city employees, especially in leadership, make a lot of decisions, major decisions about what happens to Wilmington residents. I am more likely to make a better thought out decision about something when I know my kids and I will be impacted versus it's something far away from me. I'm not in connection with it and I'm making a decision, right? I'm going to think about those two different decisions differently based on my placement, right? That's just natural, right? So I think it's important with people who make decisions and serve the community should have some stake into the community and be invested. One of the biggest proponents of getting rid of having no residency requirements is our police department, right? A lot of them are emailing, calling, texting me, adding me on Facebook. I'm not scared of y'all, so say what you want. But they'll inbox me, they make fake pages, they do all sorts of things with me. But they are the biggest proponents for getting rid of no residency. They want to police a predominantly black and brown neighborhood, but they don't want to live with you.
Which is a problem.
Think about that.
Yeah.
I want to police you,
right?
But I don't want to live near you.
Wow.
I want to go be disconnected from this community and go back home to my little house and my 2.5 kids and the dog and the white picket fence. I want to go to all of that so I don't have to think about that at night. I don't have to think about the decisions I'm making as I'm walking as an employee every day because I'm not connected to y'all. That's what I see. And we already know institutionally, there's an issue with our criminal justice system in regards to black and brown people. And we're talking about a predominantly black and brown city, right? Who has to interact with police, where we see and know historically, it's not a great relationship. Right? So you have police who don't want to live here, who wants to come here and police us. That is problematic for me. Even the fire department, right? Come in, serve your time, invest into the community for 5 years, right? Do your time. And that's okay with me. So you have the police who's backing this. You have Mayor Mike Purzycki, who never wanted residency from day one. This is not like a new thing that just popped up out of the air. He's been talking, this has been on his agenda. And one thing about Mayor Mike Purzycki, I need to be very clear about, he's a strategic man.
Right,
he does not do things without a reason or purpose, right? Everything with him is intentional, instructional, and strategic, right? I can't take that away from him, right? I might not agree with the intentions behind it,
right.
But he is strategic, purposeful, and he knows that everything means something and is lining up for a bigger thing, right? So you have to be very clear for someone to be disinvested into the no residency. This is how invested he was. City council never said we wanted home rule, right? Home rule means we make the decision on something, right? Currently, before home rule was given to us, residency was a state thing that was set. The state set for us what residency looked like, right? He was so committed to this that he found the perfect opportunity to change it, right? So remember State Representative Gerald Brady?
Yes.
He did the shoplifting thing, left. We had Bud Friel, the good old white man committee. So Bud Friel was a prior city council person. He didn't run for office, kind of retired, but they selected him to finish out Gerald Brady's term. One of the things he said he wasn't going to do with the term was that he wasn't going to pass any legislation, but he was introducing legislation like eminent domain. He had that first, and then he gave it to a representative, Nnamdi Chukwu. He gave it to him to put a black face on it. But he also, another thing he had up his sleeve, you know, in their good old white man system, they all sat down and Mayor Mike Purzycki said, this is the perfect time. Let's give city council the power, home rule, to decide residency for the city of Wilmington, right? And my thing is, I have no issue with city council being able to make more decisions. But that was low. On the list of things we need home rule over, residency was last. There are so many other things that we are tired of asking the state to do for us. Specifically, when there's a vacant seat, city council makes that decision, right, on who gets selected. We all voted and told the state, we don't want to make that decision. We want a special election to happen. They still ain't passed that on the state level. And I think they should just give us home rule to make a decision on how do we fill our vacancies for city council seats. If you want to talk about giving us home rule, give us home rules for things that matter that we actually as a council been asking for. We never asked to have residency. That was not an issue.
But strategically, the mayor did. Right? So this is a mayor push, right? So now the ball is in city council court. Now we have to talk about it, right? So now that we have to talk about it, there are so many different opinions and thoughts going on about what should residency be in the city of Wilmington? Do we want to keep it 5 years? Do we want none? Do we want something in the middle? What does that even look like?
I believe residency should just stay at 5 years, right? Everyone has different opinions, and that's okay. Originally, who was championing this bill on city council was President Ernest Congo, right? So a lot of times people thought I was going to support it just because Congo supported it. I love Congo dearly, right? He supports me a lot. But just because he puts up a legislation does not mean I'm automatically going to support it. If I feel like it's not good for my community, I'm not going to support it, right? And he knows that, right? And it's still all love at the end of the day. It's nothing personal for me, right? Personally, great person, but politically, I'm not supporting that. So with that, he originally was like the prime sponsor on this legislation to change residency, but it was to change residency, but it wasn't to get rid of residency, right? He didn't go extreme. I think it's extreme to say we have a 5-year residency requirement to then say we don't have any. Right? That's extreme. Like there was nowhere in the middle ground we could have went. Like I would have been okay with that than going totally no residency, right? Because I understand politics is a team sport. There has to be some compromise to make everyone happy. So, but they go all the way to having no residency. So city council, the ball is in our court. However, we kept fighting Trippy and his President Congo for formality. We told him we didn't want it, put a lot of pressure on him. So he would put it on the agenda, talk about it, take it off. Put it on the agenda, talk about it, take it off. And we finally got it voted out of committee. So it's supposed to go up to city council to get voted on. However, Trippy, I guess, for some reason, just didn't want to put it up for a city council vote. I guess he didn't support it anymore, right? He said, I don't support it anymore. One thing he says, remove my name as a sponsor. So that left it. So before I say this, it left it open for anyone to become a sponsor when he did that. I don't think he understood that because there's nowhere in our rules, there's nowhere in our code, there's nowhere in any charter that says what happens when a sponsor removes themselves. So it's free game. And the law department can really, determine what that looks like, right? So they determined what it looked like and said it was okay for Al Mills to become the sponsor now. And he completely changed the legislation that's going to be on the agenda for people to vote on, whereas now extreme no residency, right? So those are some of the issues or problems that we're having in regards to this. Is unethical. It's not allowing people the time to really digest the legislation. It wasn't even available on the day that it was supposed to be available. It was available like 2 days after the agenda posted, right? So a lack of transparency, they're unethical. They didn't allow the community to participate in the decision on if they wanted residency or not. And the fact that the law department agreed that Al Mills can put his name on there shows how they're in conjunction with the mayor on everything.
Let me ask you this question because we ran out of time on this segment. So today we record our show on Thursdays, which tonight is your city council meeting. Do you think it's going to pass?
It's a strong 7.
It's a strong 7.
Yes, James Spadola.
No. Oh, you're gonna predict? Okay, go ahead and predict.
Oh yeah, I know who it is. It's Councilmember James Spadola. Councilmember Al Mill. He became the sponsor. He wanted to be the lead on this. Councilmember Maria Cabrera. Then you have Councilmember Brigida Fields. She says she don't care. Her constituents can vote her out. Then you have Councilmember Yolanda McCoy, Councilmember Chris Johnson, and then the last person is, I'm missing the 7th person. Who did I not say? 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Who's the? I can't think of the 7th person. I didn't name everybody. Harley. Not Harley. Harley's on this side.
What about what's the other person? I don't know too many of them. What's the lady name who is over there?
Did I name 7 people? I think I named 7 people.
Did you? Okay. Well, let's put it this way. So we're going to find out next week. Could you please bring us back? We want everybody to see those.
Go down the vote.
We want to see those individuals who voted to support total no residency.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you one of the hardships I'm having is that when you talk about rebuilding a community and making no residency, you're saying that the people who are here are not smart enough to be able to handle it or talented enough to be able to handle it because of the lack of recruiting efforts, the lack of preparation in our school systems as well as other places for them to be able to do what they do. Did you find out who the last person was?
No, I can't think of her.
Okay, so I'm just going to leave it there, and we're going to give you an opportunity because I'm really looking forward to you talking with Miss Velda Potter as we get ready to have that, and we're going to come right back after that, and then we're going to have a conversation. We'll be right back.
New guests, new conversations, new stories every Sunday at 11 a.m. Grab your cup of coffee and tune in with Dr. Curry for weekly episodes of Coffee with Curry.
Welcome to our special report. Today I have a guest with me. We have Miss Velda Potter. She is a candidate for Wilmington's mayor's seat that is open for 2024 next year. Currently, she's the only one who has officially announced their role. We know that the current mayor announced that he is not running, and we know that there's a potential with our governor running for mayor. However, we want to hear from you, Miss Potter. So I would love for our viewers to get just to get to know you a little bit. Like, tell us more about yourself. I know you're from the city of Wilmington. You work at DuPont, like different things about you. I know you're a grandma now, like those things. So let's learn more about you.
Okay, yeah. So Shané, thank you so much for having me on today. So what about me? I am basically homegrown here from Wilmington. Little known fact, my family moved here when I was 2 years old from West Virginia.
Okay.
So both my parents are really from the foothills of West Virginia, and I wear that with pride.
Right, as you should.
But from the time I was 2, we moved to the east side. We lived on Church Street. And my father worked at the city of Wilmington. He walked across the bridge to the port of Wilmington, and he worked as a forklift operator for 35 years until he retired. My mother was a clerk at the hospital, and we grew up in between East Side and Riverside until my family was able to afford to buy a home on East Lawn Avenue, and my mother still lives in that home today.
Yeah.
I was blessed with a community of people around me who saw some potential and sewed into me. And as a result, I was able to graduate high school, valedictorian, went on to college, got a degree in
Did you go to Howard
civil
High
engineering.
Too?
I actually went to PS DuPont, dynamiters.
Okay.
And got a degree in civil engineering, first African-American woman to receive an engineering degree from the University of Delaware in its history. And then I later went on and got a master's degree in finance from Indiana University out in Bloomington, Indiana. Now, when I say first, that's fine, but that doesn't matter if you don't hold the door open for a lot more people to come behind you.
Yep.
That's what really matters. And I worked for DuPont for about 17 years until opportunity came along for me to join the Sills administration as a director of finance.
And before we hop into your government history, right? Finding out that like you lived in East Side, and I love the Black history of East Side. Like what East Side is today was not what it was 40 years ago. It really has transformed. And what do you think the reason for that transformation is, as you know, someone who grew up in that neighborhood and saw because I didn't see that, right? What I see now is what I always saw about East Side and understood about East Side.
Well, before I say what I think contributed to this transformation, I think what's really important to understand is what created East Side to be the strength, the stronghold and the sense of pride that it was. And I think it's just that. It was a real community. It was a neighborhood. The same for Riverside. It didn't matter that you were of modest means. What mattered that you were a village of people who supported each other, who looked out for each other, real neighbors. And everything was local. Everything was local.
Yeah.
The school you could walk to with the kids next door. The church at the time was, right down the street. And so too was a corner market where you could shop. And teachers lived in your neighborhood. They lived in or near your neighborhood. So there was a sense of community, a sense of pride from Southbridge to the east side, the west side. the city of Wilmington was made up of small, intimate communities where people had just pride in where they lived. And the socioeconomic differences just didn't have the relevance that they did, that they do now. And so being able to be a part of that kind of community, the talent was able to flourish. So people who were musicians were just encouraged and supported. And what they brought to the community was valued. And so the transformation, I would say, there was a lot of flight out of the city during one period of time. The bringing in I-95 just split the city in a way that the city didn't recover. But then the lack of real focus on maintaining the communities and as strong places of shared value, and losing schools was a huge loss. So when children were bused, that was a real defining point for our communities. Without educational institutions and without spiritual institutions, I'm not so sure you really have much of a community.
Right. No, that all makes sense. And I'm like, I love learning about the Wilmington's Black history, and East Side, I know, played a global, national, local role into like civil rights movement, into music, into so many things. And I wish that as a Wilmingtonian, that I knew those things as a child, right? Like now I'm learning as an adult, so it's like a different sense of pride that I have in being a Wilmingtonian. But no, thank you for that background. So we're going to get back to your, I know we were starting that you worked with Mayor Seals. Mayor Seals was the first Black mayor of the city of Wilmington, and then I know you worked for this administration, right?
Yes, I did. So I was, at DuPont, career was going fantastic, very involved in the community, on boards and things like that, but not directly involved in government. And frankly, at the time, had no inkling, no idea.
Yeah, that's usually how it is.
But when the bell rings and the call's made, it's like, okay, here I am, ready to serve. So, but when he asked me if I would come in and help him, it was on the heels of the city having 4 consecutive years of deficits.
Okay.
And as a first-time mayor, he was just getting a whole lot of criticism. The finance function was not well respected because the projections were just up and down, and the deficits were a real challenge. And DuPont was extremely gracious and helpful as a community partner, and allowed me to come on an executive loan kind of arrangement. It wasn't anything formal, but 18 months I was able to be there. And in that time, working with the great people of the Department of Finance and department heads and Mayor Sills and his team at the time, we were able to really focus on some very specific initiatives, and in that time created a surplus for the city of $5 million.
Okay.
And what that meant was we turned the corner. And that was, I didn't know anything about government. All I knew was I knew something about finance.
Money. You know
And I knew how to operate efficiently. I knew how to find where there were opportunities to save and to recoup and recover funds. But I also knew that people who were in that organization knew a lot about what needed to be done. We just needed to listen to them. And I also knew that after 4 years of deficit, what was so important was to turn the corner.
Yeah.
No matter how small it was, we had to turn that corner. And we were fortunate to turn it in a big enough way, $5 million, that we were able to bring 32 police officers on that at the time were really needed. The city was able to settle contracts with unions that hadn't had contract, agreements. in 2, 3, some 4 years at the time. And it meant the city services were able to really do what they were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So for me personally, and the connection of that to who I am and what my upbringing was, is that it was really the opportunity of a lifetime to do something for a city that had done so much for me.
Yes.
And that was very much life-changing, frankly.
Yes. So I know after Mayor Seals, mm-hmm. right? So after his administration ended, what was your next venture?
So I went back to DuPont. Although I knew I was different, the company was still as fabulous as it always was. But my drive to really impact people's lives was there in a way that it just had never been before. So I went back. But my next venture was actually in venture capital, investing in women and minority-led companies.
Okay.
And I spent some time doing that. We had some wonderful success with helping women entrepreneurs and women of color and people of color get access to capital at a time when venture capital was flowing. Right. But it wasn't flowing into certain
neighborhoods, certain groups
that just weren't a part of that network. So I had a great time doing that, did very well. And along came an opportunity with who was then state treasurer, Markell, who ran for governor and won and had 2 years left on his term, and asked if I would finish out his 2-year term as state treasurer. And I was thrilled to do that. I'll tell you the primary reason was because at the time, across the country, we were experiencing the greatest recession that we'd ever had since the Great Depression. People were losing their homes, were afraid of run on banks. And the governor was visionary as treasurer and started an initiative for women in financial literacy, and that was way before it became something that's
like
so
a thing
common.
now.
And what I knew was that had that been in place, had people known how to make better financial decisions, many of those people who lost their homes would not have found themselves in that situation. And I also knew that his initiative was young enough that if someone who didn't believe that and wasn't committed to carrying that forward, that like so many other things that are good for the people, it would not last.
Right.
So that was my motivation, and we did, I think, a great job of navigating the state through that real significant fiscal challenge, and managed the investments well, so that there was never we maintained a AAA bond rating through the rating agencies all during that time. So we helped keep the state of Delaware strong.
No, I love it. I love the diversity of, DuPont, city finance, state, working with the venture capital in regards to like economic development, right? And that's what I see is like economic development, so key and important, and to invest into communities who are least likely to have access to it, women, Black people, people of color, minorities, right? So those things are so key and important. So after you served 2 years as state treasurer, you didn't want to run again for state treasurer? You were like...
Well, I actually did run.
Okay, and you did run for that. Okay.
I did, and I wasn't successful. And at the time, no surprise, I was like, I didn't know anything about campaigning, politics.
None of that, right?
Yeah.
And it probably wasn't a class to teach you.
No.
Like those things didn't exist.
Right. And I was really just very, I guess you could say, naive about the politics of how all that works.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
My focus was doing the work. And, coming from the corporate environment where that's what you're about. You're about get the work done. Yeah, the politics are there. But it's just a very different dynamic that I will say I well know now and understand how to navigate so much better. And so I started my own company at that time, a financial services and consulting firm that I've continued to manage and have ever since.
Yeah, and I think that's so key in being a mayor is like being able to understand, and even as a council person, being able to understand the budget, right? And because we talk about like what we need for, revenue to bring into the city, how we're spending money, like those things are important to how efficient a government is and how equitable it can be and how we can invest into our communities and not just certain communities, but everyone, yes. Right? So those things are important. So after your state treasurer race, it wasn't too successful. You learned about the politics in Delaware. You started your company. What was like the next step for you? Like, what did you do next? Is that when you ran for city treasurer?
Yes, okay. I ran for city treasurer.
Okay.
And I ran for city treasurer because I continued to see the mismanagement, the waste, the missed opportunities to really make investments in places where it could really lift people. And so, I stepped up.
Right.
And was fortunate in being elected to the office. I brought in a very strong team. The city treasurer's office is a very small team, 7 people.
Right.
But I'm really, frankly, very proud of what we did during my tenure as city treasurer. We brought financial literacy to the forefront in the city. We created an initiative called Smart Savers.
Okay.
And we educated more than 400 children. And this is in a 4-year span.
Right.
We educated more than 400 children, and we educated parents. We engaged with seniors around Social Security. And I love sharing this one very, very specific example that I think reflects so much how from any office within public service, you can affect people's lives, not just in a broad way, but one at a time. A woman attended the Social Security seminar that we held and sponsored, and she learned at that seminar that she was entitled to her former spouse's Social Security.
Yeah.
As we helped her apply, she was a Latino woman, and so her English wasn't very strong. We helped her through that process. And within 8 months after that happening, she bought a home.
Right. And
she had been a renter and had been just kind of barely making ends meet for years and years. And so that's one of the things that I was just extremely proud of, that we were able to help change someone's life that way. We really focused on the investments and the bond issues that have been done over the years. And what I saw was that the city went to the bond market to borrow money every 2 years, like clockwork. Like clockwork. And as we all know, if we borrow money to fix up our kitchen and to, spruce up the basement, put in new windows or something, and we're able to do the kitchen, but we're not able to do the windows just because life happens and so forth. And then we find out that our heater is broken and we need to replace that. Well, we don't go out and borrow new money to replace the heater if we have money in the bank for the windows that we didn't get to do, and we're paying interest on that. Well, the city would go back to the bond market every 2 years, even though projects had been unfinished since 1982. We had money, and this is 2020 that this is happening. And so we set on a mission to fix that. And as a result of that, we recouped for taxpayers $20 million.
Yeah, that's the impact. That's
the impact. And so then the question is, so where then does that the funds that are recouped, the new monies that are brought in addition to the regular taxes that are collected on radio, where does that get invested? How does that help the citizens of the city. And what I saw was that it wasn't being reinvested and invested in the places where it was needed most.
Right. No, those things all I think make sense to like a great mayor, right? Understanding the budget and things like that. But we're going to end this segment. We're going to be right back. Thank you. Now, welcome back to our special report. We have with us Miss Velda Potter. She is a candidate for the city of Wilmington's mayor seat, which is next year, 2024, when we'll have our election. In our first segment, we learned a little bit more about her background. She's a Wilmingtonian from Eastside, worked at DuPont. She served as city treasurer, city finance director under the first Black mayor, Mayor Seals. And we just ended off with talking about a lot of your successes as city treasurer, right? And how you were able to make real impact on people's lives. Now, what were some of your challenges in your 4 years as city treasurer under the Mayor Mike Pizicki administration?
Right. Well, I would say one of the major challenges that I faced was really getting attention on some of the what I consider just very critical issues,
right?
And the pushback on trying to work through and really get proper and equitable address to them.
Right.
One in particular that got a lot of coverage was this infamous $3.4 million.
Okay.
They were funds that had been given to the organization, the Wilmington Housing Partnership,
right,
which just coincidentally was headed by one of the mayors, by Buccini, one of the mayor's close associates. And the money was given to that entity for the very specific purpose of rebuilding the homes in the 800 block of Bennett Street.
Right.
That had happened 9 years prior. But here we were 9 years later, and those homes
still
were not renovated. And of course, in my office, I'm paying the debt service on that. So I'm asking, okay, and it's coming due for us to repay that whole $3.4 million to the bank. Now, we had the money in the account to pay it, so that was not my concern. But my concern was that I look at the homes and they're not rebuilt, and I approach the organization, Wilmington Housing Partnership, and I expect to see the money in the bank, and it's not there. So my question and concern was, where is it?
Money? Yeah,
where is it? It doesn't disappear. And and so the reaction of the administration to that was very concerning. You know, the fact that you can have a situation where it's clear where investment was supposed to be made and it wasn't, and yet those funds are not available and don't exist, and there's no interest in there being accountability, clarity for where they are. So the sort of the lack of integrity around that, it was a big challenge for me.
Yeah.
And until this day, although the homes in that block are now being built, they are not being built with the $3.4 million that was allocated and given and provided. It's a whole new arrangement with, I believe, Habitat for Humanities, with a whole new source of funding. So I continue to ask and demand to know really what happened to it. And then it's further exacerbated for me because the person and the people who were at the helm of that organization at the time are building $90 million projects, $30 million projects, built the whole riverfront. And so you mean to tell me that that kind of investment and building can be well managed for the riverfront, for downtown, for certain parts of the community, but not for the east side of Wilmington or the west side of Wilmington or Gibraltar, for that matter. And so from my perspective, it's an issue of equity all across the city and investment in certainly in growth and in development, but in an equitable way, not only in terms of where that's made, but also who is a part of that happening, who's able to be employed in that process. And so those were the challenges that I had.
Right.
And frankly, those were that was the basis of my stepping forward and saying, you know, I just couldn't continue to operate in a box, if you will, a purely financial box, because that's kind of what people see and think of the treasurer.
Right.
And certainly that's what the administration perceived when the issues were so much bigger than that.
Do you have like a specific platform yet? Like what you're run, like these are my top 3 priorities, or like what are those?
Yes. So my top priorities are to build on what has already been done here in this city. People believe that the building and the growth in terms of investment in infrastructure is going to stop. No. We have to keep building. Look at the homes that we have that are vacant. If nothing else, we have so much that we need to do right in the communities. So that will continue. I'm a civil engineer. I understand that and how important that is. We will just do it very differently.
Yes.
So that will continue to be a place where I will place emphasis. Jobs and locally within our city are absolutely critical. We have to have people working in good paying jobs with benefits so they can afford homes. Home ownership is absolutely attainable.
Yeah.
People are paying $1,800 a month to rent, and they can surely pay $900 a month
for a mortgage
and own that and for a mortgage in that property. The education system within our city, although that's not under the direct control of the mayor, that is an important part of my platform.
Right.
Because as our children go with education, so goes the future of our city. And so I will be a strong voice in Dover. I expect and hope with City Council, sharing the value and the importance of that. And so education will also be a really critical focus. The crime in the city has to be. My belief is doing things in those areas, apprenticeship programs to get people working, locally hiring people, education, those things will help that.
Yes.
But there are also some very specific things that we can do around community-based clean and safe teams, much like Downtown Visions is for downtown. There are parts of our community that need that kind of ongoing presence.
I agree.
And visibility of people in service to those communities as well. And that will create a pipeline of people from the community into law enforcement.
Right.
So then when the next academies, police academy or fire academy is underway, there are already people who have gotten a sense of, you know, what it means to be in a role around helping to ensure the safety of the public and people in your community.
No, it makes sense. I'm glad the viewers are able to hear more about your platform, your life, who you are as a person, and what that means and why you're deciding to run. If people want to get in contact with you, help you with your campaign, what can they do? And then we'll close out.
Yes. Okay. So thank you. I really appreciate any help that anyone would like to give for the campaign, volunteering. You can reach us on veldaformayor.com. You can also reach our campaign phone number at 302-545-4031. And we're on Facebook. You can, send us a message that way. And we'd love to have you become a part and be involved.
Yes, no, thank you. And I know that you're the first of many things, but you will be the first Black woman mayor, right? On top of just having the experience, the credentials, just being able to make history, I think is important. But
and actually the first woman mayor, period.
Yeah, the first woman mayor, period.
And it's time for some nurturing in our city.
Yes.
It's time for some leadership with capability and a heart for people.
I love it. Yes, the first woman. I appreciate it. But no, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be right back.
And we're back. What a great interview. First, let me just start by saying that it was a great interview. Got an opportunity to hear from Ms. Potter, and I'm very grateful for that because while I think the community needs to really start looking at candidates and not the opinions of other people.
I agree.
When some things I just didn't know. I did not know that, number one, the real fight behind why she decided to run. But what happened with this whole thing while she was the city treasurer, I didn't know about that.
Yep.
But it's good to hear it. It's good to know it. And she's not afraid. Mm-hmm. That was one of my takebacks.
Yeah.
She's not afraid to go up against any person who may be feeling that they're more powerful than her. And I think that's important.
Yeah, unethical. I didn't realize that she was like a financial expert.
Yes.
I knew that, but I didn't know that. That was her thing, and she really turned the city around under Mayor Seals in regards when she was the city finance director there.
Right. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I didn't know those things. I knew she served on state treasury, but I didn't, understand, really sitting down.
But you know what? That's what I believe really got Jack Markell to appoint her. Mm-hmm. He knew the work that she did, and under him, she did a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
she did a phenomenal job, and I was just grateful to hear some of those things that she was saying. And for those of you who are watching us, we just had an opportunity to hear from Miss Potter, and this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get everybody to make an educated decision. You have to hear from the candidates. I'm going to bring her on the Coffee with Curry show so I can continue this conversation because, and if there's other candidates
we'll
that
do
want
all the candidates.
Right. If there are other candidates who are running, there's none at this point, then certainly we will certainly consider and bring on, let's say, extremists. I'm not playing that game. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be bringing in extremists just so they can uproot the apple cart and all this other stuff. But I'm very grateful for that. When Jack Markell appointed her, I was shocked. But the work she did, when she served and decided I'm going to not run again, but I'm going to run for mayor because of the stuff she was seeing.
Yep.
That was another eye opener for me.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this: good job. Good job. I'm going to bring on the Coffee with Curry show. If those of you who are running for office and you really would like to be interviewed by either Kobe or by our good friend Shané, then you certainly feel welcome to do that or contact us, and we will try our best to put you on, because our whole goal is to be information for the community and to make sure that you're hearing it without it being filtered through whatever. And we disagree quite often on this show because that's who we are as people. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what makes us strong and which makes us valuable. Well, that's our show for the day. And I'm very grateful to God that you are here with me today. We're missing our other brother, but we thank God for you and the interview you did. I'm going to continue to talk about this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show this over and over again because I thought it was very good, and you did a phenomenal job too.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So this is Dr. Curry.
Shané Darby.
Until the next time, see ya.
Talk soon.